The Witch's Road is kind of a story of like penance for Wanda, the road having a lot of forks, some of them leading to light and some of them leading to dark. The comic opens in Manhattan where Wanda is talking to the ghost of Agatha, and Agatha expresses that she thinks that the city might not be so good for Wanda. But Wanda instead sees it as a fresh start, despite feeling like something is wrong with the city. Wanda explains that she's made a lot of mistakes in her past and she's actually working on trying to redeem herself. She speaks really highly on her magic, saying that she knows that it's been called chaos magic, but that's not necessarily how she sees it. She sees it as something a lot more personal and something that men might fear, which is witchcraft. She goes to a crime scene and tells the detective that she thinks that these moments of momentary insanity where the attacker doesn't have any memory of what they had done is actually caused by magic. She also relates this to cats dying in New York and says that that is also something that has to do with magic and not necessarily like a feline disease outbreak like everybody seems to think it is. She actually suspects that there's somebody sacrificing these cats. She explains that it's actually to like summon a demon, one that embodies envy and hate and the need to punish. Detective Erickson then asks Wanda if she knows who would be possessed next, and she actually says he will, which is why she asked him to meet at the crime scene by himself so she could protect him and other people. She does actually exorcise this demon, but she does point out that something feels really weird about her magic when she does so. When she returns home, she brings this up to Agatha, and she actually expresses her interest in trying to fix it, despite the cost and despite Agatha's concerns. Wanda then goes to talk to Hecate, the goddess of witches, and ask her if she feels anything off about magic. Hecate says that she hasn't actually casted a spell in years because she's been running a cafe. Despite this, she does say that she feels like magic has been broken for a really long time. Wanda does actually express that she thinks that maybe her fragile mental state has done some irreparable damage to magic as a whole. Hecate then asks if she can take down this minotaur that's been attacking the island, and Wanda agrees, because Hecate actually says it would be a very good idea to have a goddess indebted to her. Wanda does go up against the man-bull and strips him of the powers that were bestowed upon him. Agatha actually does ask her if she thinks that Hecate created the threat, and Wanda says no, that she doesn't believe that Hecate has done it. But she does say that she does fear whoever is casting these spells because they are very big spells and it doesn't seem like anybody's actually paying the cost for them. In the Marvel comics, the cost is usually what somebody's giving up to have the ability to cast the spells. So Stephen Strange has to eat a lot of weird foods because he can't stomach human food anymore because of what the spells have done to his body. We do then see a man and Hecate and this void-like entity, and Hecate has been withered and decayed and is probably not alive anymore, because it does seem like this lifeless void is like absorbing her magic and her life force. This man, we find out, is the Emerald Warlock, and Wanda ends up going to Ireland because she heard of a plague that is sweeping through the countryside there. She's led to a bar that's actually on the grounds of a really big battle and ends up casting a healing spell on all of Ireland, but she's stopped by the ghosts of the people who were in this battle. Agatha and Wanda then come to the conclusion that the answer to whoever is actually casting these spells could be found on the Witch's Road. Wanda immediately comes face to face with a woman who is introducing herself as the Scarlet Witch, and Wanda worries that it might be an illusion to test her fragile mental state. But she does know deep down that this is in fact her mother. Because time is so weird on Witch's Road, this is actually a version of Wanda's mother before she had even had Pietro and Wanda. Though Agatha does caution her that if this is a ghost, learning that she is a ghost might actually harm her. Natalia then mentions that she is on the road to actually protect Wanda from something she is about to face. Wanda's mother takes down this Irish creature that appears and then starts to fade away, only then realizing that she was talking to her daughter the whole time. Agatha and Wanda soon run into Delcom Dane, the Emerald Wizard, and they see that it's him who's been casting these powerful spells. He'd also been killing the last of the bloodline of the wizards who had banished him from Ireland. While the Emerald Wizard is talking about his past and his plans, Wanda, unknowing to him, leads him further down the Witch's Road, taking him from a realm that was ruled by a male Celtic deity into the world of the Mother Goddess. She says she has the upper hand here because she knows the road so well by being a witch. Then he declares himself her archenemy and disappears. Wanda then heads to Spain to help a nun with a ghost possession inside of a church, but Wanda actually finds out that it was a curse left by a nun who was burned at the stake. Many nuns being killed at this time and being falsely accused of witchcraft. Wanda exorcises all of these spirits and heads to Paris. In Paris, she actually helps a local hero talk to his dead wife after he had lost hope in life himself. himself. Summoning her spirit and letting him talk to her one last time, they rekindle his love for life and his love for heroism. She then meets Annie Wu to stop the Dark Tongyi, who had been the head of the operation that Annie was trying to stop. Wanda wielded off the lackeys while Annie fought him herself. While he was taunting her lack of magical abilities, she actually just killed him with a normal bullet because he was so unsuspecting. Wanda then returns home to New York and has a session with her therapist. They actually have a really good conversation. She talks about how her heritage was a lie and that she's actually really nervous about figuring out who her mother is. She also speaks on her relationship with Billy and Tommy and why it makes her feel so uncomfortable, because the souls of her sons could have taken the lives of two children and then lived their lives in their bodies, or that they went back in time and just lived their life after being born from another parent. Either way, she was either absent in their lives and they had new parents, or they happened to take the life of somebody else when they possessed those bodies. She also finally talks about how she keeps herself so busy because she doesn't actually want to have the time to deal with the things that she's afraid of. When she returns to the next session, she actually confronts her therapist about being the leader of the crime circus. He was actually using these sessions to hypnotize her to have her steal jewelry for him. She does end up getting him arrested, but not without thanking him for actually being a really good therapist, despite his alternative motives. Shortly after, Pietro actually comes and visits her and tells her about the new civil war, telling her that he would actually side with Tony because he doesn't understand why people would try to fight what hasn't actually happened yet. To which Wanda reminds him that as a witch, her people have actually done a lot of future seeing and that she would actually choose Carol's side if she was choosing sides, but she's not. Being because she felt like Pietro was actually just trying to use her power to make sure that their friends could just stop fighting against their will. This leads to her calling Pietro out for always treating her like a scared little girl who would only follow him blindly. She ends up telling him that he's a sociopath and actually kicking him out of her home, saying that she never wants to see him again. In Japan, Wanda actually goes to investigate the murder of the Aoi master, who was residing in Kyoto. She ends up interviewing a detective, his ex-girlfriend, and his arch-nemesis before finally finding the killer, who was his servant Miles, who killed him to steal his mystic power. She does end up defeating him and helping the Aoi master, who has now been reborn as a fox, find peace. But she does admit that she's still really glad that she had this kind of side quest to distract her from her main problem, finding who her mother actually was. This ends up leading her to Serbia, where she actually is finally trying to track down her mother, or at least the legacy of her mother. She ends up finding a priest who traded her and Pietro to the higher evolutionary, so then he ends up performing his experiments on them because this priest gave them up. But this priest does give the name of her mother's best friend, and Wanda's able to find her to kind of figure out more about her mom. Meeting Dasha, she ends up hearing stories about Natalia and kind of figuring out that, like, she didn't fight petty criminals or anything. She more fought what we would call, like, the universal monsters, so like werewolves and vampires and ghosts and other witches. She also hears about her aunt, the woman who had raised her when her mother had died, is still alive even though she had understood that she had been burnt in a fire. During her conversation with her aunt ends up being possessed by a demon. And after Agatha appears to help Wanda exorcise them both, her mother actually possesses her aunt. She says, like, hey Wanda, I was trying to possess your aunt because I wanted to talk to you and these demons jumped in, so now I'm here. She does actually speak to Wanda for quite a few minutes before leaving, but she explains that Wanda has to go back to the Witch's Road and walk to the end to find the answers she's looking for, and to save magic as a whole. So Wanda and Agatha head back to the Witch's Road, and for the first little while it seems like somebody keeps sending monsters after her because they know that it's taking years off of her lifespan, and they're maybe hoping that she would end up dying before she ended up at the end of the Witch's Road because she kept having to use spells. Eventually, Natalia's ghost is back and tells her that she is almost there. She just has to face her worst fear, which is her past and the mistakes she's made in her past. So there's creatures that show up looking like Simon, like Vision, like Wiccan, and like a bunch of the other Avengers, and they're just kind of berating her for things that she had done in her past. While she's defeating these creatures, she's talking about how she knows that they're not actually the people, and she knows she's made these mistakes, but she's not going to have regrets for the past, and she's going to leave the past in the past. She ends up waking up at the end of the Witch's Road, with Agatha and Natalia by her side. Moving forward, they find the goddess of witchcraft, whose body is bound by this snake-like creature that is actually the embodiment of chaos. Wanda tries to defeat it alone, but is actually losing at this point, but even then, they're not enough for this creature. And Natalia actually summons Pietro to the Witch's Road to help. And once chaos is actually banished, not defeated because chaos will never actually be fully defeated, the goddess of magic is released but is still dying at this point, which Natalia ends up sacrificing her life so Wanda can continue to live in her stead, reviving Agatha and reversing the cost that had happened to Wanda. So free of the cost, Wanda begins to start over, going to a family whose son's been possessed and finding out it is again the work of the Emerald Warlock, who's trying to regain his power that Wanda had stripped from him. This whole run ends with Vision and Wanda talking at a table really civilly, and Wanda explains that she'd always wanted to be an Avenger because she didn't know what else to do with herself. But this time she's asking to be an Avenger because that's what she believes she should do with herself, because it's the right choice for her. This comic's a really fun deep dive into a multitude of different topics. Not only does it give great insight to Wanda's character and explain the Witch's Road, which is actually a really fun world to play in, it also talks about how important her Romani heritage is and the women who had come before her. But it also talks about the hardships these women face as witches and just from society in general just by being women, especially when Wanda's interacting with men who feel like they have some sort of power or self-importance. It's also a really nice deep dive into the connection of witchcraft and women and how it empowers Wanda as a person, and how Natalia and Agatha and all of the other witches feel the same. And again, it's really cool to see the world of the Witch's Road and see her walk down it and face these hardships, because it is a trial of sorts, a kind of a trial by fire. It's really cool. Hopefully this helped you get a better understanding of the Witch's Road, especially because it will be in Agatha All Along coming in the next few months. And I hope it built an excitement for this, because it's going to be a very cool sandbox to play in. If you like this and you want to see more of it, please like and subscribe, and remember to stay geeky.